Hey everyone, this is CAR RAYROB.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And we want to welcome you to our podcast, Hello Movies, My Old Friend. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My old friend.
New podcast, Rob.
When did we get a new podcast?
Today is our new podcast. It's
Today.
episode 1.
When? Why didn't you tell me?
I did.
When?
Now. What's happening now is happening now.
You know, whatever you give me, I will read.
And that's why I gave you the script. You're supposed to be the one telling the audience what this new podcast is all about. So read it.
You, San Diego.
Okay, you read that. You read that right, but that's wrong. I was supposed to give you the description of the new podcast.
Here we go.
Hello Movies, My Old Friend is about this.
Oh, this makes more sense
Yes.
now. Okay, well, we want to welcome everybody to our new podcast, Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where we will be dissecting, but more revisiting.
Yeah.
We'll call it revisiting old movies that we have not seen in years. I'm not talking 1 year. I'm not talking 5 years. I'm talking decades,
yeah.
maybe.
I think we're kind of saying the cutoff is high school for us.
I think that's fair.
Somewhere really
Right
close
around
to
there, yeah.
We loved it in high school or younger, but we haven't seen it since.
Definitely. And we all have those movies. We have those movies that were staples for us as a kid, and maybe they've stuck with us. We remember those little bits and pieces, the parts that we love, but does the whole still hold up? Well, we got to find out.
And we don't even know why we stopped watching it, but that's a great description of what this podcast is, Rob. And I think a way to maybe be succinct is also to tell people what it's not. So here's some movies that we would not cover on this new podcast.
Okay, hit me.
My Cousin Vinny.
Okay.
Now we're not covering that.
I'm watching that within 5 years.
Yeah, if it's on TV, I'm still watching it, and it's so iconic. We know why it's good. We don't have to rehash that.
Definitely.
Superbad.
Oh man, I revisit that movie at least twice a year.
It's amazing. We see it. You're going to keep watching that.
Yep.
Princess Bride.
Oh, yep.
Super iconic. We don't need to revisit that.
Definitely.
Hook.
I
would fight somebody who says Hook's not a good movie.
I agree. I would be right there by your side.
Don't leave a comment. Don't start the comments off like that. Like, Hook's great.
Match.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
It's probably been about 10 years since I've seen Mrs. Doubtfire, but I still don't.
But you still know why
I love it. Exactly, which is exactly the point.
And that is the point. We're going back to see movies that we think we love, but maybe we need to revisit to double check.
Definitely.
It's like that aunt that lives really far away. You probably love her, but you haven't met her in a while. So just go knock on the door, say hi, and like, do I like you?
Do I still like you? Well, we're gonna find out.
All right, guys. So let's actually pick up this first movie. Let's start talking about what we have selected. Me and Rob have selected for movie 1, because unlike Say Hello to My Little Film, where one of us has seen the movie and we're presenting it to the other, in this one, these are our movies that me and Rob both agree we love but haven't seen in a long time. So we've made this list of movies together. So it's a little twist there.
Yep.
And the movie that we've picked first is The Blair Witch Project.
It is
from 1999. So this is definitely, we were in high school.
Yep.
We're probably freshmen in high school. We might have saw it before 99.
Yeah. So this is where it comes.
Yeah, this is a little fun story.
This is a fun story. So basically, the way that we saw this movie the very first time.
I'm interested if a lot of people saw it this way too.
I wonder. It's very possible. So my sister lived in Austin, Texas at the time, while Ray and I lived here. And I would go visit
an undisclosed location.
Right. You don't know where we live, and we're not gonna tell you.
All you know is it's not Austin.
Exactly. It is a bunker in the middle of the desert. But so I would go and visit her in the summers. And one summer I was there, and while I was there, she had a friend who had bootleg movies that he would get on the internet. Rise of the internet, as it were, in 1999. The wild, wild west.
This
of
was
the
a
internet.
different time back in 99.
Film piracy. But anyway, so this guy had a copy of a movie. So we were going over to his house and just to see what he had, and he pulls out this disc and he says, okay.
Whoa! He pulled out what?
He pulled out a disc.
Oh gosh.
It's a different movie altogether.
Okay, this guy was not. You should not be at his house by yourself.
No, a disc. Everybody, he pulled out a disc, and he said, "So I got this movie, man, and I don't know what it is, but I've heard it's real. It's about these kids out in the woods. They like went out to film a documentary, and something happened to them, and they died, and somebody found their footage, and they put it together and cut it together in this movie. So it's a documentary." And we're like, okay, and he's like, yeah, it's like the Blair Witch Project.
The Blair Witch Project.
Okay, so at the time I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it. But this guy's handing me a disc saying this is a movie about three kids that die in the woods.
And the internet was not like the internet is now. Exactly. So you really couldn't verify this
Google
information.
was not really the thing then.
No.
So we went home and we put it on my sister's computer and we watched it on like in a darkened office.
Yeah.
In the night. And the whole time thinking this is real, and we're looking at each other like, is this real? This can't be. Is this real? And then at the end, we still didn't know.
Yeah,
we still didn't know. So I had to bring it home when I came home that summer from Austin, and I had to show it to Ray as I do. So we did the same thing in my room. We put it on the computer and watched it on my computer.
In the dark. Yeah, it was dark at a sleepover of some sort. We watched it, and you told me it was real, and I was like,
I thought it was.
I'm not calling you a liar. And I was like, I mean, I remember being little not enjoying it, like a little scared. Like, this is not cool. Like, this is freaky.
Right? It's like some weird snuff film or something. It's odd.
Exactly. It felt like that. So I don't remember. I don't know if we ever saw the movie in the theaters. I only remember seeing it on your computer.
After we watched it on the computer. So we watched it on the computer, and then shortly after that is when I found out that it was a fictional movie. Yeah. It was not real. And everybody, the actors ended up like, I think it was like the MTV Movie Awards that year. I mean, it just kind of blew up the whole thing. Like it was this whole but it kind of killed the whole facade. But it launched obviously this movie launched the entire found footage genre, which we are still plagued with in some ways to this day.
Yeah, I don't know if this might have been peak found footage in some ways. I don't know, because I don't know. Like, we saw it in such a unique circumstance where, the timing was right. Like 99, anything could have happened. And so, again, we thought it was real. But no found footage film have you ever watched after that you thought was real?
No, not at all. It completely kind of tore down that whole, like I said, the whole facade of it. And everything that came out after that, you're like, okay, well, this is obviously a fictional movie. But, so while we're revisiting this movie is, one, the iconic nature of it.
Yeah,
I think
it's the Blair Witch. Everybody knows about the Blair Witch Project.
Exactly, and there's still those scenes that have been parodied in other movies and stuff like that. But I have not seen the original in what would now be 25 years.
Exactly, that's crazy.
Yes, it is. It's crazy to think about it. So now that's why we thought when we're going to make this podcast, let's kick it off with a bang and start with the Blair Witch Project.
And I think it's even more of a perfect movie for this episode 1 of this podcast, because like we haven't even seen it as like knowing it's a movie,
right?
So like to even watch it through the lens of like knowing this is a real movie, like I still remember the parts. I think I remember parts.
There's definitely parts that are, like I said, are pretty iconic.
Yeah, they're iconic, but I don't know if I remember from watching them on your disc or just seeing like the highlights or whatever. So, or just remembering the parodies of maybe remembering the parodies as much as I remember the actual movie. I don't know. So seeing this through the lens of an actual movie, I wonder if this will hold up.
Well, we got to find out.
Let's find out.
Now we're going to find out. So as we would in our other podcast, Ray and I are going to go watch this movie right now. If you have seen the Blair Witch Project, check it out too. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you won't. We're going to find out if we do, if we still do, maybe we never did love it. We'll find out. Love is a strong word in this podcast. Our other podcast, love is the real word. Here, well, I don't know.
We're going to find out. We hope so. We're
going to find it. We're going to find out. But we find out with us, and we'll be right back with you.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You might also be watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
Okay, we are back.
And at least one of us isn't standing in a corner right now.
No, and we're all here, and that was a movie.
It was.
Yeah. So let's start this convo, Rob. And you just kind of told the audience, we saw this movie originally thinking it was real. We never saw it in the theater.
Yep.
So one of my first notes is, wow, big Lionsgate intro. I don't remember that the first time I saw it.
Right.
But, kind of looking back 25 years ago, do you think this movie felt real? And how did we fall for it, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of lens to look back on,
knowing
on this
it's
whole
fake
thing
now.
on. Yeah, I mean, and especially, as we kind of talked about in the before, this like breadth of found footage movies,
Yeah.
So, I will say, I will give it a maybe not a backhanded compliment. I don't know. I guess. So I think it does feel real because it feels so bad in some places. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is not meant to be a movie as you would think of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's maybe a testament to it in a weird way. Like, there were parts of this movie that I'm like, oh man, this is way worse than I remember.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of a note I have, is like, it feels real because there's no movie happening. There's no story happening.
Yeah.
There's no like character arcs happening. It's just like, it's just people like trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
And
they're lost.
they keep getting lost.
Yeah,
and
more lost.
But it's not a movie.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not movie happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could make an argument that there is a narrative in a sense, where there is kind of like a descent into fear and kind of paranoia as far as like when they're getting more and more lost, the group itself is kind of disintegrating, and and especially where it started, it's the film crew, they're doing their thing, they've got the interview portions in the beginning of the movie, so it's like you can tell like, okay, they're trying to make a movie here, at least the characters in the movie are trying to make a movie,
right?
But then once they get into the woods, it gets very disjointed.
And I think they were, because the movie is improv.
Yeah.
So of course, you're going to lose something with that. You're going to gain realism feel, which I think it probably do.
Right.
Because a lot of the reactions were real. Like, they were discovering some of these things for the first time. They didn't know what to make of them.
Yeah.
But like, you're losing out on like, you're not going to have great lines because you're not like, they're not trained writers, and they haven't thought of this for 6 months as they wrote a script. So it's like, you're gonna kind of miss out, and like maybe underwhelmed at some points where you probably would want something to hit.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a little underwhelmed because they don't really have anything great to say.
Right. Yeah. It's there's a lot of elements in this movie that do a lot of heavy lifting, and the number one element is sound.
Yeah.
Because you really can't see anything.
You can't see anything because they don't show anything.
Right. They're basically, it's
shaky camera.
Yeah, shaky camera. It's like I'm getting motion sickness sometimes.
Yeah. The cinematography, again, real because it's not cinematically shot.
Right.
It's not framed nicely. It's not. Yeah. They're not trying to do that.
Yeah. So it works in that level, again, kind of in that realism. So it's weird because we're sitting here talking about it almost in a negative way, but we're talking about. It's like the negatives make it a positive in a weird way.
Yeah.
It like adds to the realism, but the realism's also kind of boring.
It is. And we've talked about it in some podcasts before how real life is boring.
It can be, but this is better. This is not. Certain Women is way better.
Sorry, Robbie's cat just jumped and scared that guy. I thought he died.
This is the Blair Witch Project, everybody.
I thought he fell off the couch and died.
No.
I'm sorry. But sorry. Totally, that's not my fault. I got sidetracked.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But yeah, so it's interesting. Like I said, the negatives kind of make a positive in a way, and I can agree. Like in certain instances, yes, like real life isn't that interesting, but in some movies it is.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. But to the movie's credit, I think I saw somewhere Guinness World Record for highest like gross per dollar spent on making the movie.
It was like 4,000% or something like
so,
that.
and I kind of wrote here on my notes, all right, the scary things in this movie is sound, sticks, and rocks.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing they show you that is scary is like, there's a pile of rocks here.
Yeah.
There's a stick hanging from a tree.
Definitely.
There are sounds far away. That's it.
Yeah, it's and like I said, there are certain elements that I do think work, and even like as far as possibly kind of adding to that, fear of the movie, like when they've got the stick figures that they come across. I remember
Yeah.
that from my original watch when they like come into that clearing and it's
Yeah.
like all filled with.
I
Those
remember
stick
feeling
figures.
very like creeped out watching that on your computer, but not this time. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is actually kind of boring. It's not even. I can barely even see what's hanging from these trees.
Definitely, and there's like a part when they're in the tent and like there's like pawing at the tent or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's a loud sound. I've been in
Yeah.
a tent before, so I know how this sound works in that regard. So I can see it being very effective in something like this, but it's basically all you got.
Right.
Because then they're running out of the tent
And then
into
you
the night and
can't
you don't
see
see anything.
anything.
And there's
Yeah.
I was like, she's like, what the is that?
Yeah.
And like, it's like,
show us.
you
We
can't
don't
see
know.
anything. It's just dark. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think I can see the legacy that the movie
Right.
left. You know what I mean? And like what came after it and like what built upon this.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like this is a situation where this is the first, but it's definitely not the best.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's the first, not the best. I will say, I feel a little creeped out at times, like just in the good horror movie sense. Yeah, I think so a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I got some of those good horror movie feels, so I still think it was effective, but like does just nowhere near the magic of when we first watched it.
Definitely
like it's
not.
not that, it's not the situation, like it's not that.
So, I have a question though.
Sure.
Do you think the parodies that we've kind of seen of this movie over the years, have you think that's kind of degraded it as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so you see those like when the close up of Heather
Right.
Donahue where she's like,
Famous,
the
iconic
famous
shot.
right where she's talking in the game, I'm so scared right now, like that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
The parodies of that has that kind of ruined those parts of the movies for you?
I think it has ruined it in that it's not like, we haven't seen this movie in 25 years, but in some ways I feel like I've seen so many parts of this movie
Right.
often that it's like not special anymore, and you can't help but like associate it with some of those parodies now, and I think it's harder to take it serious.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like, hey, I never thought this was real. Of course it's fake. But I don't know. I don't think it helped it. I think I don't think it did it any favors.
Sure.
What about you? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so to a certain degree. You kind of, because I think really what it shows is that this movie's kind of boiled down to 3 or 4 good moments.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, when I think of it that way, it's not so much that the parody has ruined it because all I can think of is the joke. It just shows that it's really, this movie's boiled down to 3 or 4 iconic moments that's what everybody remembers, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think about where found footage has gone from here. You look at like the Paranormal Activities movies, which I'm not a fan of either, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's not like I like, I don't like Blair Witch, I like Paranormal Activity. I don't really like any one of them, but I do feel like I can see where a series like Paranormal Activity was able to look at Blair Witch, take the base concept and improve upon it. Because I would say, probably I enjoyed the Paranormal Activity movies more than I did Blair Witch. Not that that's saying much.
Right.
But it's, I
don't know if I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed that first watch, thinking it was real. Because that was
sure.
I don't think I could be more scared than
right.
that.
I completely agree. I think so.
But
Yeah.
looking
you
back,
have to
yes,
think, yeah,
I would rate those higher now for sure.
Yeah, I think at this point I would say you have to watch this movie thinking it's real, or otherwise it's just, what am I watching?
Right. Why am I watching?
Yeah. Like I said, I have nothing inherently against found footage films,
No.
but in fact, my favorite found footage film is Troll Hunter, which is great. It's Norwegian.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I've
If
seen
anybody
it.
out there, anybody out there not seen Troll Hunter, find Troll Hunter. It is fantastic. But yeah, it is definitely a genre that's been overexposed over the last 25 years, and we can thank the Blair Witch Project for that.
Yeah. So, like I said, even though we are kind of throwing some shade on the movie, it is the godfather of this genre.
It has a legacy.
It has a legacy. It deserves credit for that. Rob, I want to ask you a couple, just, we're looking back at a movie we haven't seen in like 25 years.
For sure.
Was there anything about this movie that because I have a couple things that I was going to talk about, but that you like misremembered or like didn't remember, or anything that caught you off guard, like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's bad, or
Um, I didn't remember how kind of bad some of the acting was.
yeah,
I think that, but again, like it kind of goes to that idea of, well, is it bad because it's supposed to feel real,
right.
or is it bad just because it's bad? You know?
And it's hard. It's improv, so it's hard. So it's
Sure.
like they have to be. They might be scared at some point, but they have to fake being scared. Think of something to say, not step on each other's toes. It's
Sure.
hard.
Yeah. But even like some of the parts that I feel like maybe were a little bit more scripted. So like when they were doing the beginning sections where they actually looked like
Yeah.
they were filming the documentary, and when
Right.
Heather Donahue is doing like the dialogue over, or the narration. That's the word I'm thinking
Oh,
of,
the narration for the
Yeah,
doc.
yeah. Where I think that stuff was a little bit more. It felt,
Janky.
yeah,
Yeah.
it felt
It felt like a
a little
B, like
more
she was making a
forced,
B movie.
a little
Yeah.
more forced, a little
This
more.
doc was never going to be good if it
Right,
was real.
right, exactly. It's kind of exactly how I felt. Like,
Yeah.
this doc's never going to be good if it was real. So I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, and
Yeah.
just how much you don't see.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I guess that I did not remember that, just how much you don't see.
Yeah. I will say for the acting, I thought, and for some reason this line stuck out to me because I think there really are no good lines in this movie. But when they were kind of like, I think it's just Michael and Heather toward the end, and they, we're not going to go south again because we've already gone south. It didn't
Right.
work. We walked in a circle, and they were like, which way should we go? And Michael's like, Wizard of Oz, like Wicked Witch of the West, or which of the East, which one's the bad one?
Which was the bad one?
She's
Yeah.
like, I think East is a good one. It's like, let's go East. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a good line.
That
Like,
is a
that
good line,
works.
yeah.
But like for me, like I did not recognize Heather Donahue at all. Like I
Yeah.
only remember when we were talking about the parody. Like I only remember her from the nose up. Like
Sure.
when I saw her whole face, I was like, I mean, I guess that's her because she's in the movie, but I would not have been able
Would
to pick
not
her out of a
remember that,
lineup.
yeah. Well, to be fair, I think Joshua Leonard, who's in it, is the only one who kind of like went on to do much of anything. I think the other two,
Yeah.
Michael and Heather, did do some things off and on, but I think both of them have left acting a long time ago. So it's not like this movie launched careers in that regard.
Right. And then like for some reason in my brain, like at the ending, I thought Heather would be in the corner. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Because I also think Heather is the one who runs down and drops the camera, so she can't be both. But like, it's funny because it's kind again, that's probably the iconic scene. Like, okay, the movie ends with a person watching a person in the corner. Obviously it ties back to the lore, but in my brain it was just always Heather. So I don't know if I really remembered the other two as much, but I thought that was funny, kind of circling back to like, oh, do not remember this correctly.
Yeah.
All right, Robin. Before we finish up, I'm gonna throw some Blair Witch Project trivia at you.
Oh man.
We could discuss this. Some of this stuff's a little fun, so we'll see.
Okay.
Not a ton for this movie because again, it was kind of like just improvised.
Right,
it's kind of just
yeah.
thrown at. There's not a ton of like the making of the movie and stuff. But the director did ration food to make them hungry as their like real life counterpart. So they were kind of starving them to death.
And there was no money, so
Yeah.
no craft services were available.
They were camping out there. So, the actors weren't told when strange noises would be made. So just keep the stuff a little bit more genuine, the responses. They weren't told when that a tent was going to be attacked. So when they ran out there and showed nothing,
sure.
they really just, they didn't know what to do.
Right.
I thought that was kind of funny. Heather's mom, after after this movie kind of was out, received sympathy cards because people thinking she was dead.
She was actually dead.
And I thought this was really cool. Before the release of this movie, the actors were listed on IMDb as missing or presumed dead.
They had to sell it.
Yeah, they sold it.
They had to
sell that. So, and another cool thing I think, so in the movie, Josh goes missing. Well, the way they had worked it out with the actors was Mike was going to go missing, and the ending of the movie was going to be Josh and Heather. But to keep the spontaneity, they took Josh the one night, and so when they woke up, like they really were confused, and like Mike's like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be, so like they were really kind of like, where's Josh? Like, what is going on? Like, where's Josh? That was all real because it wasn't supposed to be him.
Interesting.
So they threw some curveballs at them in the making of it, which I think are some interesting ideas there.
Yeah, I mean, again,
starving your actors maybe not the best idea.
Yeah,
like, the little switch there,
like
good
idea.
idea.
I think that's just an excuse now. They just didn't have the money for food, so I get it. But yeah, it all kind of it does add to the realism.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and I think that's kind of where I'm going to give this movie a ton of credit.
Right,
is they were able to build that realism. I even think if we were talking about legacy, I think another thing to really kind of kind of tie this to stylistically are like the paranormal shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how
Sure,
many of
sure.
you've ever watched, but
Ghost
those,
hunters and stuff
right,
like
yeah,
that.
they feel a lot like the Blair Witch Project does, because I'm not gonna lie, you don't see a whole lot in those
It's
shows.
not allowed to show.
It's just a lot of it's a lot of people walking around houses with cameras and
Yeah.
like, oh, you hear that? You hear that? Wait, shh, 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 listen, listen.
Oh, went away.
Oh, did you hear that? You hear that? Like, I didn't hear anything. Like,
That's a direct quote from the Blair Witch Project movie.
right, exactly. So I think, uh, as much as maybe this movie doesn't resonate with me, as much as it did the first time, I can very much appreciate it for the legacy it left behind. You know, I mean, any movie that can make 4,000% over what you spent on making
did
it,
something
right. Did something right. Yeah. You know, they absolutely did something right. So they deserve credit in that regard. You know, it was a genius concept at the time.
Yep.
And no matter what, nobody can take that away from them.
I 100% agree. But let me ask you this as we try to maybe finish up here. It's been 25-ish so years since you've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Are you going to see it in the next 25 years, or will you go 25 more years without seeing it again?
I might never watch this movie again.
I agree.
I might never watch this. So I'm sorry to everybody who made this movie. I give you all the credit in the world, but no, the Blair Witch Project does not hold up.
Seeing it twice in my life is good. You know, we said, you know, this is a movie that I regarded fondly for 25 years. I now no longer regard it fondly and probably won't see it again.
Yeah.
I respect it, but I'm like, it's not going to be watched again.
Definitely.
All right, guys, me and Rob are done talking about the Blair Witch Project. We were a little harsh on it, but it is the godfather of found footage film. And if you found this podcast to be enjoyable, then please take the time to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast. If you leave us a 5-star review, we will read it live on air someday.
Someday we will do that. But we want to thank you so much for tuning into this new podcast, Hello Movies, My Old Friend. But I want to let you know that we will be back next week with a new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
We will.
On the CAR RAYROB Podcast Network. I'm penning that now. That is a new thing.
I like it.
So also, if there is a comment section wherever you get your podcast, be sure to leave Ray and I a comment about what you think of the Blair Witch Project. Does it still hold up? Does it not? Maybe leave us a comment about a movie that you have recently revisited and let us know if it still held up. But until next time, this is CAR RAYROB.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My old friend.